Tonight, Carolina Impact explores our schools and who's making the grade.
There really are no excuses. If we want to look at who's at fault, we just need to look in the mirror.
We've got to do something and make sure that we get the lower performing schools doing better.
From low reading scores.
Those kids are going to be our tomorrows and our futures. And if we are not preparing them to be successful, it's going to be a bad thing for this area.
To low pay.
It's very difficult to attract teachers to North Carolina because our compensation isn't competitive.
To where your child goes to school.
I do want socioeconomic diversity, but not at the expense of anyone's achievement.
In this Carolina Impact Special Report, we talk with educators and parents to find out who's making the grade.
Welcome to Latta Park in Dilworth. Hi, I'm Amy Burkett. I appreciate your time and thanks so much for joining us for this very special education special. You know, tonight you get to be the teacher handing out the final grade. We're going to share some critical information, but so much of student success is based on reading. So I had to start things out with one of my favorite books from childhood by Dr. Seuss and Oh, the Places You'll Go. You know, the first line excites me even today. Congratulations, today is your day. You're off to great places. You're off and away. Well, did you know there are more than 2,400 public schools and 100 charter schools across North Carolina? With about 147,000 students, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools is ranked as the second largest school system in the state. CMS says it provides all students the best education available anywhere. That's a quote from the school's own vision statement. But how can CMS be the best at education when about 2/3 of its students are reading at or below grade level? Carolina Impact's Jeff Saunier takes a look at the critical issue of reading.
Hi, Amy. Hey, you recognize this? It's a copy of Charlotte's Web, one of the most popular children's books of all time. Chances are you read this as a child, or maybe read this to your child, or maybe both. Well, we're going to use Charlotte's Web to help illustrate Charlotte's problem. Why so many Charlotte school kids who ought to be able to read this book on their own can barely read it all.
Wilbur was now the center of attraction on the farm.
Good food and regular hours were showing results. Wilbur was a pig any man would be proud of.
If I told you my story.
Listen up, parents. This is what third grade reading is supposed to sound like.
Ever since the spider had befriended him, he had done his best to live up to his reputation. When
Charlotte's Web is a book that's written on a third grade level. And if a child is not able to read Charlotte's Web independently,
and if I told you my story,
and understand the story and what's happening, something's wrong. And
Monroe Richardson is executive director of the advocacy group known as Read Charlotte. He says what's wrong is that only 39% of third graders in Charlotte-Mecklenburg can actually read at a third grade level.
When Charlotte's Web said some pig, Wilbur had tried to look like some pig.
When Charlotte's Web said terrific, Wilbur had tried to look terrific.
If they're not reading at third grade level, then what level are they reading at?
So I hear from teachers about children showing up in their third grade class reading on a kindergarten level. I talked to a third grade teacher yesterday that described that situation.
if I told you my story.
And when your kids are years behind in reading,
Wilbur was now the center of attraction on the farm.
well, it's like handing third grade books like Charlotte's Web to these first graders. You know they're going to struggle. Again, just listen.
Charlotte had written the world R.A. dance, and Wilbur really looked rated. When Charlotte's Web said traffic, Wilbur had tried to look traffic, and now that the web
60% of our children are not reading at grade level.
Mecklenburg's low reading scores were highlighted in this year's State of the County address.
What we know is that children who are not reading proficiently by the third grade are less likely to succeed academically, less likely to graduate from high school, less likely to be ready to succeed in college and in their careers.
'Cause it's time to play. It's time to learn.
And the County Commission chairman says part of Charlotte's school reading problem is the lack of affordable preschool programs.
Oh, let's get ready with...
Like this Read Charlotte program that teaches kids vocabulary words before they ever get to kindergarten.
Whenever I see a child that isn't reading or can't read, I think about what didn't happen for them in school, but I also think about what didn't happen for them before they even started school.
Good job. All right.
Once the kids do start school, here's another problem. Schools like Reed Park Elementary, where the neighborhood is mostly poor, or Sterling Elementary, where many of the kids are homeless, or Albemarle Road Elementary, where they speak 30 other languages besides English. They're all examples of schools with similar poor reading scores, but for different reasons.
There's no program that's better than having a high-quality teacher in the classroom that knows how to teach.
CMS's Chief Academic Officer, Brian Schultz, says getting better reading scores at all schools may mean getting better reading teachers at all schools.
Teacher quality, putting a teacher in a classroom that can move a student 3 years worth of levels in reading, as opposed to a teacher that doesn't know what to do with reading.
And Wilbur really looked radiant.
He did everything possible to make himself glow. It is not easy to look radiant, but Wilbur...
And then there are the reading scores themselves. We looked at 12 years of third grade reading scores, all the way back to 2003. Charlotte's average rate of reading proficiency, less than 36% of CMS third graders actually reading at third grade level.
We need to be held accountable. The school system needs to be held accountable for not educating our children.
County Commissioner Vilma Leak is a former CMS teacher and a former school board member who's blunt about why CMS isn't succeeding with reading.
When I was there, 11 years, we had 44 programs, and no one could ever tell us what program worked for the children.
Well, I think Commissioner Leak is right that we need to know whether programs are working.
He would turn his head slightly and blink his long eyelashes. Then he would breathe deeply.
There really are no excuses. I mean, if we want to look at who's at fault, we just need to look in the mirror.
Spring into the air and do a backflip with a half twist. At this, the crowd would yell and cheer. How's that for a pig?
This is my story.
Read Charlotte says their goal is to more than double reading proficiency among third graders over the next 9 years, from 39% now to 80% by the year 2025. By the way, 2025 also the year that all those current third graders, the thousands who are so far behind in reading right now, well, that's the year they're supposed to graduate from high school. Amy?
Thanks so much, Jeff. There's a lot of uncertainty around the Charlotte-Mecklenburg School District now as the board discusses student assignment. Carolina Impact's Danielle Koser brings us up to speed on all the confusing issues related to it.
Swinging across the monkey bars and racing down the slide.
Whoa!
Ashley Hall has her hands full with 3 kids, Bennett, Bubby, and Gray.
I got you.
Across town, William Hughes and his daughter, Lila, take some time to stop and smell the herbs, checking on their garden before starting homework.
Smells good.
It smells good.
The Halls live in Myers Park, where Bennett and Bubby attend Sowen Elementary, a school marked by high performance and low socioeconomic diversity.
We have 19% economically disadvantaged students.
How many bears?
It's a different story for the Hughes, who live in West Charlotte, a community filled with high socioeconomic diversity and low-performing schools.
We found out that we were assigned to Bruns Academy, and we did not hear great things about Bruns Academy.
Now, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education is taking a look at student assignment, trying to find a way to provide every child in the district with access to an equal education.
Those 147,000 kids are going to be our tomorrows and our futures.
But the makeup of Mecklenburg County makes that challenging. Take a look at this map showing the economic segregation of the county. The darker the shade of green, the higher number of families living in poverty. There's a direct link between low income levels and low performing schools.
We know we cannot break up every pocket of poverty, but try to diminish or minimize as many as we can.
This isn't the first time the district has been tasked with making schools more diverse, but this time it's not court-ordered. In the 1971 Swan versus Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education ruling, the Supreme Court upheld busing programs designed to speed up racial integration in public schools across the nation. Now, memories of the past are creeping into the current conversation.
This whole issue is causing so much fear and anxiety and division. I implore you to heal the wounds, go on record with a vote, and say we're not doing anything silly, we're not going to disrupt the whole school sign plan, we're not going to bus kids across town.
It is not acceptable to put children on a bus and ship them in traffic to faraway, low-performing schools. Our children only lose by forced busing. They lose time driving on buses and traffic, lose after-school activities, lose friends, lose their sense of community.
I'm beginning to see a pattern of people talking about forced busing when there was no mention of forced busing in our goals. And there is no mention of forced busing in our guiding principles, but if all people know is forced busing, that's where they go.
Hall and Hughes are united in their fight for the best for their children, but living in different parts of the community gives them different perspectives on what the best looks like, leaving parents and the board asking the million-dollar question.
Can we have both, essentially? Can we have socioeconomic diversity and high performance?
We realize the system not only impacts us, but the children around us. This is where we're going to live. We're not planning on moving, and we want our community to be great.
Last month, the board passed its guiding principles for the student assignment plan, stating every student will be assigned to a designated homeschool within proximity to where he or she lives. Homeschools are defined as schools with fixed adjoining attendance boundaries. That's good news for parents like Hall. She joined the community group CMS Parents United for Public Education, asking the board to guarantee kids will have a seat at their homeschool.
I do want socioeconomic diversity, but not at the expense of anyone's achievement.
The Hughes are involved with One MEC, a group fighting for socioeconomic diversity in schools. They want the choice to send their daughter to a higher performing school, farther from home.
We're limited by one thing, and that is our zip code. And I'm hoping that people will do what's right to actually move our kids forward so they're capable to move forward in a global economy.
The board's guiding principles also put an emphasis on magnet schools and school options like middle and early colleges to eliminate achievement gaps. McRae says the board wants to add 4,000 magnet seats with priorities for admission based on socioeconomic status. But approval of the guiding principles hasn't quieted concerns from the community, shedding light on a bigger issue.
Right now, we are not very well trusted by parts of the community.
To some degree, I think that's a very valid point and very true.
Matthews Mayor Jim Taylor says in March, the town formed a task force to examine the possibility of breaking away from Charlotte-Mecklenburg to form its own district. There are only 15 city schools across the state. The closest is about an hour up the interstate. Mooresville Graded School District opened in 1905 and never joined with Iredell-Statesville schools. As a result, it's much smaller, about 6,000 students compared to the county's 20,000.
Every family, every child in CMS deserves a high-quality education. And CMS, in a lot of our opinion, has gotten so large that they can't do that efficiently or effectively. And if the end result is splitting up or splitting away, and that will provide us with the consistency of a good quality education for our children, that's what I think we will ultimately do.
Mooresville consistently ranks one of the top in the state, and it's not a rich district. They rank 87th in the state in per student spending, averaging $7,900. Charlotte-Mecklenburg averages $8,500 per student.
It's a very good example of something that we potentially could become. We're not the wealthiest people in Mecklenburg County, but we do have the desire to do what's best for our children.
Well, it appears to me that it's just a concern that they might not get what they want, and that the parents there are, again, afraid that we're going to do something to them that would be difficult or hard for them to accept.
Meanwhile, families like the Halls and the Hughes put their trust in the district, and administrators aren't taking that lightly, knowing the decisions they make today impact the futures of thousands of students. For Carolina Impact, I'm Danielle Kosa reporting.
Next, let's take a look at teachers leaving the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools to go to other states or sometimes even neighboring counties. It's not always about teacher pay, though. Carolina Impact's Jason Terzis looks at the issue.
I see a 16. Do you think that's the right answer? No. Let's go back and reread the question.
A typical afternoon for Dan Harabin is spent in a Starbucks.
How many more pounds did Kaylee have than Joshua?
But he's not here for his typical grande flat white espresso.
Do you see how they tried to trick you there, though?
Yeah.
He's here to tutor a couple of fourth graders.
I enjoy tutoring all the kids. You know, it's a great time one-on-one. I get to connect with the kids.
Harabin is in his 12th year as a CMS teacher. For the first 11, he taught in elementary school. Now he's a 9th grade science teacher at Audrey Kell High School. He spends his afternoons tutoring to supplement his income.
Right now I'm tutoring, I think, 14, 15 hours a week. I'd like to do significantly less than that.
Between classes, lesson planning, and tutoring, 60-hour work weeks are common.
Leaving my house at 6 o'clock in the morning every morning and not getting home until 7 or 8 at night makes for long days.
Those long days will likely continue, as long as the average teacher pay in North Carolina ranks near the bottom in the nation. During the 2001-2002 school year, the state ranked 19th in the country for average teacher pay, less than $2,000 off the then national average of $44,655. But by the 2013-14 academic year, North Carolina fell to 47th in the nation, nearly $12,000 below the national average of $56,610.
Unfortunately, I came in the year that the pay froze. And it was either 7 or 8 years that we went without a pay raise. And, you know, as an 8th year teacher, making $34,000, $35,000 a year, that was, I mean, it was a tough time. And that's when I started having to do all this extra tutoring and everything to make ends meet.
I think it's very difficult to attract teachers to North Carolina right now because our compensation isn't competitive, particularly with our neighboring counties.
Charlotte-Mecklenburg School Superintendent Ann Clark is well aware of the challenges. She deals with it every day. And being so close to South Carolina, there's only so much she can do from keeping teachers from jumping across the border, where the pay is better.
It is discouraging because, you know, I want the best for our kids across Mecklenburg County.
I know that at our high school right now, they're trying to hire a foreign language teacher, and she's kind of up in the air between our school and Fort Mill because of the pay.
Harabin doesn't want to leave CMS because he loves the Ballantyne area and the families and students in it, but he knows what's happening around him.
You hear about it every week. Teachers at my school where I'm at now leaving, pursuing other avenues outside of teaching, you know, going into the private sector, the business world, and probably doubling their salaries.
I don't think anybody ever goes into teaching for the money. It's not a lucrative position, and we know that.
Jennifer Lowry didn't leave CMS for a better paying teaching job or for one outside the profession. After spending 17 plus years as a teacher and administrator, she left in the middle of this school year because she was simply burned out.
Money was a part of it. I think it was probably overall a philosophical difference that I started to have with the way I saw things heading.
Lowry says the elimination of teachers' assistants meant more work. More meetings meant less time. Multiple layers of administration meant more people to answer to. And working nights and weekends became the norm.
It was the perfect role for me when I first began because I could be creative. I could build relationships with kids. We could do fun things together. And it turned into a job that really doesn't emphasize relationships anymore. It's all about what kind of data can you produce as a teacher and what numbers can your kids produce on tests.
Holding 2 master's degrees, Lowry currently writes lesson plans for Study.com, an online educational website. It's not a long-term solution, but for now it's allowing her time to decompress. Does she miss the classroom? You bet.
Every day. I miss the kids. I miss the kids every day.
Lowry's situation is part of a much bigger issue facing not only CMS, but school administrators statewide. If teachers are leaving for better paying jobs elsewhere or getting out of the profession altogether, who's replacing them? The pool of potential candidates is shrinking as well.
We're in a situation where at least the state of North Carolina colleges of ed have seen a significant reduction in the number of college students moving into the colleges of ed to become a teacher.
Progress on the state level is starting to be made in terms of salaries. In 2014-15, entry-level pay for a teacher in North Carolina was just under $31,000. It was raised to $35,000 this academic year. The average teacher salary has gone from just under $45,000 to nearly $48,000, moving North Carolina from 47th in the nation up to 42nd. While policymakers in Raleigh debate another proposed increase for this coming school year, Superintendent Clark is exploring her own ideas to help CMS teachers.
My thinking has been, how can the community of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County send a strong message to our teachers that we value what you do, and here's how we value you.
Her idea? Working with area businesses to create incentive packages for teachers and support staff.
And it could be a fitness package, it could be a housing package, it could be a daycare package, it could be an arts package. Really having our community come together and say, if you're a teacher and you show us your ID badge, that ID badge is a passport to these kinds of opportunities for you, because we value the decision you've made and the role you play with the children of this community.
So, how does the superintendent's idea go over with teachers?
I think it would go a long way towards showing that we're valued.
You know, I think anything that they do, we're really appreciative of as a teacher. You know, we're trying to make ends meet, and I think that anything they would do for us would be, you know, well received.
Yeah, the response from the Charlotte community has been very positive to this idea of, we want to be a community that is known for valuing teachers. And it's not enough just to say we value teachers, but we've got to show that we value teachers.
Between long work days, turnover rates which are roughly 15% per year, non-competitive salaries on a national scale, and low numbers for the next generation of educators, North Carolina is facing a teaching crisis. It's up to everyone, from lawmakers to administrators to community leaders, to work together to make things better for our teachers and for our children. For Carolina Impact, I'm Jason Terzis reporting.
So let's wrap things up sort of the way we began, with my favorite Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. I have a line I would love to read you. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what you know, and you are the guy who'll decide where you go. We hope we've shared some important information with you about education in our school districts. You've gotten some answers, but we want to encourage you to ask your own questions. Talk to the teachers, administrators at your school. Demand the answers that you need to make the best decision for your student. The only grade that matters is the grade that you, the parent, gives your child's school. From all of us at Carolina Impact, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you back here again next time. Good night, my friends.
A production of PBS Charlotte.